In this video, we explore the ontological argument proposed by Saint Anselm, a medieval philosopher and theologian of the 11th century. His argument is one of the most unique attempts to prove the existence of God because it relies entirely on reason. Unlike other arguments that look at the world, such as cause, motion, or design, Anselm turned inward, focusing on the very concept of God itself. The ontological argument is known as an a priori argument, which means it is based on logic and reasoning alone, not on experience. Anselm believed that by simply understanding what we mean by God, we can logically conclude that God must exist. At the heart of Anselm's argument is his famous definition of God. He described God as that than which nothing greater can be conceived. This definition means that God is the greatest possible being, perfect in every sense. There is nothing greater, more powerful, more complete, or more perfect than God. Even a person who denies God's existence can still understand this idea. So, at the very least, this concept exists in the human mind. Anselm then introduced an important distinction between two types of existence. First, existence in the mind or understanding. Second, existence in reality. For example, imagine a beautiful painting. You can picture it in your mind, but that is not the same as the painting actually exists in the real world. According to Anselm, something that exists in reality is greater than something that exists only in the mind. Real existence adds a level of perfection or completeness. Now, Anselm built his main argument step by step. First, we have the concept of God as the greatest conceivable being. Second, this being exists in our understanding. Third, if this being exists only in the mind and not in reality, then we could imagine something greater, namely a being that exists both in the mind and in reality. But this creates a contradiction. If we can imagine something greater than our original concept, then that concept was not truly the greatest. Therefore, the greatest conceivable being must exist not only in the mind but also in reality. From this reasoning, Anselm concludes that God must exist. Anselm strengthened his argument further by introducing the idea of necessary existence. He claimed that God is not just a being that happened to exist, but a being that cannot fail to exist. A necessary being is greater than a contingent being, one that may or may not exist. Since God is the greatest conceivable being, God must possess necessary existence. This means God's existence is not dependent on anything else and cannot be denied without contradiction. One of the earliest criticisms of Anselm's argument came from a monk named Gaunilo. He challenged Anselm using the example of a perfect island. Gaunilo argued that if Anselm's reasoning is correct, then we would imagine the most perfect island possible and conclude that it must exist in reality. After all, an island that exists would be greater than one that exists only in the mind. But this conclusion seems absurd. Just because we can imagine something perfect does not mean it actually exists. This criticism suggests that Anselm's logic might be flawed because it could be applied to prove the existence of anything. Anselm responds to Gaunilo by saying that his argument applies only to a very special kind of being, a being that is absolutely perfect and cannot be conceived as non-existence. Ordinary things like island are not necessary being. They are contingent, meaning they can exist or not exist. Therefore, the logic of the ontological argument cannot be applied to them. Only God, as the greatest conceivable being, fits the definition required for the argument. Much later, the philosopher Immanuel Kant offered a powerful critique of the ontological argument. Kant argued that existence is not a real property or predicate. In simple terms, adding existence to a concept does not make it greater. For example, the idea of 100 coins remains the same whether those coins exist or not. Existence does not add any quality or perfection to the concept itself. It only tells us whether the concept is realized in reality. If Kant is correct, then Anselm's key assumption that existence makes something greater, it's mistaken, and the argument fails. Despite this criticism, Anselm's ontological argument remained extremely important in philosophy. It was one of the first attempts to use pure logic to prove God's existence, and it influenced many later thinkers such as Descartes and Leibniz. Even in modern philosophy, versions of the ontological argument continue to be discussed and developed, especially in the field of modal logic. In conclusion, St. Anselm's ontological argument is a bold and intellectually rich attempt to prove God's existence using reason alone. It challenges us to consider whether existence can be derived from the very concept of being, whether one accepts or rejects the argument. It remains a powerful example of philosophical reasoning. It continues to inspire debate and reflection, making it often of the most enduring argument in the philosophy of religion. If you are still watching, I hope you are finding this content useful. Please like and share this video, subscribe to the channel and share your thought in the comment. Your support motivates me to create even more content like this.